Hello, my name is Clark Artemis James McGuire, and I did my senior thesis on speculative anatomy. So my thesis was, by using speculative anatomy, experts can understand what dinosaurs' anatomy is like and create made-up creatures. So for my project, I created an ARPG, which is a type of game, and I will explain that in a little bit. I created my own species with genetics, so coat genes, markings on their coats. And then I made a handbook with that has all the rules and activities on it. And I was able to learn a little bit of coding while doing that. And so I created 48 genes and 7 mutations. And then I also created a world that the game exists in. And in order to create my own species, I had to learn a lot about animal anatomy, so the different body types, joints, skeletal system, muscular system, and that required a lot of research. So an ARPG stands for Art Role-Playing Game, and if you don't know what a role-playing game, the player controls a fictional character to complete quests in an imaginary world, and an art role-playing game uses art or literature to play the game. And then another term that is very important is canon, and so that's the accepted as official part of the story or game. And so what speculative anatomy is a creature or character design that uses anatomy informed by the anatomy of animals that currently exist. So I learned about the different body types. So digigrade, which means animals walk on their toes, and ungulates, which walk on their hooves. And I learned about muscles and skeleton and then the different type of joints. And so in order to get a further understanding, I was able to interview Tara Whitlatch, who is an amazing artist and worked on one of the Star Wars movies, Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, and also worked on Brother Bear. And so she created the creature designs for Jar Jar Binks, for instance, in the Star Wars movie, and is a wonderful. I learned a lot from her, and the importance of learning animal anatomy in order to create fantasy creatures. And one of the things that I took from her was, if a computer-generated CG horse is not convincing, even if the dragon is really fantastic, the whole production suffers. And so part of speculative anatomy is creating a creature that is believable. And here you can see this is one of her creatures that she made. So she started off with creating the outside and what the creature looks like, and then she went into creating the muscles and then the skeleton. And then, welcome to Acotle Grove. Acotle Grove is the ARPG group that I made. And so the point of Acotle Grove is to explore the world of Raymond, and Raymond is the world that the game takes place in. On the right, you can see this is the current map of Raymond. It is a large continent that the players will eventually explore as they complete quests. And then in the left corner, you can see these are the Emerald Mountains, and this is a canon location. And so in order for me to even begin to create this, I had to make this, which is the handbook and is the backbone of the group. I was able to look at successful ARPGs and take what I liked from them and what I didn't like and created my own version of it. And for this, I had to learn a little bit of coding so I could put it on the website. And so what the handbook includes are all of the rules, so how to play, and what activities there are, what behavior is appropriate. And some of the activities include hunting, fishing, exploring, breeding, and much more. I had to create the world info, so canon locations and the lore of Raymond. And then I also went into detail about the species information of Acotles, so the behavior and anatomy of them. And so, beyond the handbook, I created 6 starters, and what starters are just Acotles that are owned by the group and can be drawn by anybody. And so I was able to create 2 official imports, and then 4 of them are work in progress. And so here you can see this is one of the starters that I finished. And then I also made all of the activities that there are, and then crafting recipes from items that can be gathered from completing activities, and then an event that everybody can participate in. So some of the challenges that I faced was definitely coding. Coding is very interesting because if one thing is wrong, then everything is wrong. And so I had to create a journal skin and also code the text for the journal. And then writing the handbook was very challenging because of how long and dry it was at times. And with my interview, I had quite a bit of trouble trying to contact Tara Ladash. I just couldn't find her contact, but eventually I found it and was able to interview her. And then making Acotle Grove was very hard because I had to look at other ARPGs and see what I didn't like about them, and what I did, and then formulate that into a handbook. And then also designing the map of Raymond, which was very complicated. Even though it's just an outline of a continent, I still kind of planned what I wanted the different biomes to be. And then also figuring out what Acotles look like. They went through a huge design process because I had no idea what I wanted them to look like. So where my inspiration came from, were they flying or were they landlocked? And then also making the anatomy of Acotles as realistic as possible. And so that includes the muscular and skeletal systems. And so here you can see these are some of the designs that I had in the beginning. I started out with a flying dragon, and then it evolved over time to be a landlocked dragon. And then, so this is what Acotles look like. And so here you can see this is the head, the neck, the shoulder, the barrel, or the body of the Acotle, and then the hindquarter and tail. And then this is a sketch of the muscles. I wanted to keep it a sketch because I'm still learning about different muscles, and I will later talk about my inspirations. And this has some equine and also canine anatomy in it. And then here is a sketch of the skeletal system, which again I wanted to keep a sketch because nothing is quite finalized yet because of my current knowledge of anatomy. And then, so my inspirations for the final design, I really wanted to have a dragon that the head was heavily influenced by a ball python. And then I wanted the body to be based on a mixture of equine and canine anatomy. So here you can see this breed of horse is called Acotle, and it has a very slender body, yet slightly muscular. And then pit bulls, which I love very much, have a very muscular and also slender body. And then for my genetics, so I made 5 base coats, 48 genes, 7 mutations, and also the rolling system for the genetics. And so the rolling system, so you can breed, if you have a male and a female Acotle, you can breed them together. And so depending on the type of gene, or the rarity of the gene, it will determine the percentage of how the percentage of it being passed down to the offspring. And so that jumbled little line of letters is a genotype, and so that basically codes for the genes. And then the phenotype is basically saying what that code is. So, for example, this Acotle is a hooded snow tapir with socks. And so you can see that it has a hood, so that's the darker marking. And then all of these lines across its body is the tapir. And then he has little socks on his feet. So after I finish my senior thesis project, I really want to continue this. It is currently online and anybody can join. And so I want to develop this project even further. And that includes subspecies, which you can see here. All of these are a heavier built Acotle, and then the one on the left has a full mane rather than a quarter mane. So instead of having just a little tuft right here, it has the mane all the way on its neck. And now here's the fun activity. So under your chairs, you will find a piece of paper. And so you will be drawing an Acotle, which this is Essen. And so you will be drawing him catching a fish. And as you can see, the requirements is you just have to draw him catching a fish. The setting is a lake. It can be above or underwater. And at least 3 fish have to be within the picture. So please be creative as much as possible. And at the end, there will be a prize, which you saw, if you saw earlier, there are some cookies. So you will make sure you write your name on the piece of paper so I can make sure that it's yours and that you drew it so you can get your cookie. And you will have 5 minutes to draw. So you will begin. So in conclusion, I really enjoyed this project. It was fun designing my own game and species of dragon. And I was able to learn a lot about animal anatomy, and I also got to interview one of my favorite artists, which was amazing for me. And she taught me that there's so much to learn about animal anatomy. And even though she's been working in her field for about 30 years as an illustrator, she still feels like that she's just beginning with anatomy. And I worked hard on creating this ARPG, and I'm hoping that it can go somewhere. And even though I did have a little interest in coding, I don't think I have it anymore because of my experience. But yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you for completing the activity. I will now take your questions.
Alright, so with your Acotle anatomy, I see that the neck is like very large. Does like the tail on the other side balance the weight? Like how is the weight distributed?
I haven't actually thought about that. I guess I was thinking that I wanted to have a powerful animal, and so a lot of the power can come from the head or from the neck pulling stuff. And I just really enjoy long tails as well. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but it is what it is. So.
You said you had like 48 genes and 7 mutations. So were your 48 genes just coding for like one thing, like to either have something or not have it? And then like what was the difference between that and then like genes that were mutations?
So the regular genes, so basically if it has a dominant and a recessive gene, then that gene will appear. I do have 2 genes that or actually 3 genes. One of them has to do with the base code. And if the Acotle has it, then it expresses that gene. So for example, I have champagne and cream, which are dilution genes, and they can also work in pairs. And then for mutations, so the mutations can occur randomly, but for albinism, I picked that I wanted that to have an increased chance of passing down to offspring if one of the parents or even both of the parents have that gene.
Okay, so the difference between like the genes and the mutations was that like the genes had to come from both of the parents, but the mutations could just happen like any time with any breeding?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's the increased chance of the albinism if it's in one of the parents.
Are there any other animals in this world, and do you have any plans for making them?
So I don't have plans for making new animals. I wanted to just create one species and kind of use the animals from this world, I guess, to put into it. I will have some familiars that will be made of species. Take one more question.
So you said initially that your creatures were flying creatures and then you decided to landlock them. What was the motivation behind that?
So I wanted a writable creature, which both of them are indeed writable, but I just kind of figured out that I would rather have a quadrupedal, so a landlocked animal, rather than a flying one, just because of the aesthetics, I guess, in a way. Because I did draw a version of the landlocked, and then I decided between the flying and the landlocked, and I chose